All right, welcome to your very first lecture in engineering mechanics as part of our first chapter. And in our first part or first chapter, we deal with forces and we want to really develop a solid understanding of forces. So my goal in this lecture here is to give you a very broad overview first and give you an introduction to talk about Newton's laws, because this is really at the heart of everything we do. Don't get me wrong, what we discussed here today is something that you don't have to have consciously on your mind all the time, but everything we do in this class really results from all the stuff we talk about here. So with that said, let's dive into the objectives of today's lecture and let's think about what we want to cover today. First off, we need to recall some physics principle and talk about some general concepts for mechanics. And we're going to do that on a very broad level that will set the tone for all the methods that we use in this class. Then we want to differentiate the two systems that we as engineers deal with. We deal with the imperial system. Often engineers in practice deal with the imperial system, but then often engineers in science deal with the SI system. It sometimes even depends on your discipline. If you're like a chemical engineer or a civil engineer, then you may use or prefer one or the other, but we want to talk about both of them. So the goal here is to talk about the two measurement systems and think about them very broadly, just as an introduction. Then the most important part I would consider the Newton's laws that we want to talk about. Of course, you have heard about them before, but I want to give some special attention to some of them. And another thing that we learn from Newton's laws is the gravitational attraction. That is the reason why we can even deal with loads in this class or in engineering mechanics. And so we want to understand how that works, and we want to understand how this leads to actually weight on the system. So let's get started and let's begin with a short introduction to mechanics.